In the last episode, we explored different spots in Jerusalem and Bethlehem. You can find it on the info card now, in case if you haven't watched it. In this episode, we are going to Gethsemane Garden, Top of Mary, the Good Samaritan Museum, which we are also going to talk about the Good Samaritan Law, which is very important for first aider, and also Jericho, and the birthplace site of Jesus. We'll start after the intro. First of all, I'm going to an attractions that are quite close to the hotel. I walked down from Seven Arches Hotel. On the map, it doesn't look far. In reality, it's all downhill, steep, under the sun, and much longer than it seems. After a while, the road started to change. On both sides, tube stone appears, row after row, very close together, almost no empty space. This is the cemetery of the Mount of Olives. People have been buried here for more than 3,000 years, and even now, people are still wanting for a place here. In Jewish traditions, death is not the final chapter. At the end of days, the dead are believed to rise again, and the Mount of Olives is understood to be where the moment begins. Walking down from the Mount of Olives, crossing the road only take a few steps, and yet, you enter a space that feels completely different from the city outside. The traffic is still there. Jerusalem hasn't disappeared. But something in the pace change as soon as you step inside. This is Gethsemane Garden. The olive tree here are old. The trunk are twisted. The bark thick and uneven. Shaped by time more than by care. Not every tree need to have to witness the events of 2,000 years ago, but they have clearly stood here through many generations. As you walk through the garden, you notice that people begin to speak more quietly. In Christian traditions, this garden is associated with the night before the arrest. This church is called the Church of All Nations. The building we see today was completed in the early 20th century. Beneath it, archaeologists found the remains of an earlier Byzantine church, and below that, trace of even older structure. This place has been returned to again and again by different generations. The church is called the Church of All Nations because its construction was supported by multiple countries, different language, different cultures, all choosing to mark the same location. The interior was designed to remain dark. The ceiling is covered in deep blue mosaic, and the window allowed very little light to enter. At the center of the church, a lateral piece of rock has been left in place. According to Christian traditions, this is where Jesus prayed on the night before his arrest. This place is the Top of Mary. According to the traditions, she was buried in the rock-cut tomb at the foot of the Mount of Olives, at this very location. By the Byzantine time, this site was already widely regarded as the place of her resting. The tomb lies underground, low and enclosed, which reflects common burial practice of that time. What matters here does not happen on the surface, but after you walk downward. The tomb itself is empty. Different Christian traditions understand this in different ways. Some speak of her rest followed by being taken by God. Others emphasize her assumption without defining the details of her death. Mary was a Jewish woman living in the 1st century under Roman rules. She did not leave written records, and she never held authority. What we know of her comes from later accounts and from how generations choose to remember her role. We're going to talk more about her in the next episode when we visit the Serifs. Leaving Jerusalem. Once the cars enter this road, the city quickly falls away behind you. The surface is modern, but the road itself is ancient. Route 1 follows, in large part, the old road that once led to Jericho. The distance is short, but the descent is constant. In antiquity, this road was known to be dangerous. Sharp bends, limited visibility, and countless places where someone could hide. This is the Good Samaritan Museum, located along the old road between Jerusalem and Jericho. Across different periods, people rest here, resupply, and then continue the journey. Inside the museum, the focus is on Byzantine mosaic. This mosaic once covered the floors of churches and public buildings. They were walk-on, used daily, and for that reason, many of them survive. The mosaic come from different places and different communities. Before this place became a museum, it functioned for a long time as a roadside inn. It sits along the old road between Jerusalem and Jericho, at the point where travelers were most likely to need a stop. Inns like this were essential. They provide shelter, water, and a place to recover before continuing on. The story of the Good Samaritan takes place on the road between Jerusalem and Jericho. A man is traveling along the road when he is attacked by robbers. He is beaten, stripped, and left lying by the roadside, barely alive. Later, others pass by. A priest came along, seeing the injured man, and continues on his way. A Levite follows. He also sees him, and he too moves on. Then, a Samaritan arrived. In the social context of that time, Samaritans were not regarded as exemplary figures, and were often treated as an outsider. When a Samaritan sees the injured man, he stops. He tends to the wound, places the man on his own animal, and brings him to the roadside inn. At the inn, he entrusts the injured man to the care of the innkeeper. He leaves money, and promises to return and cover any additional cost. Because of the parable of the Good Samaritan, many countries today use the term Good Samaritan laws to describe a group of legal principles designed to protect those who help in good faith. These laws are not about heroism. They address a very practical concern. If someone stops to help, without being a professional, will the law punish them for trying? In the original story, the key moment is not only the act of first aid, it is the decision to bring the injured man to an inn and transfer the care to someone else. That moment separates compassion from long-term responsibility. This idea later shaped legal thinking. The law chose to protect good intentions rather than demand perfect outcomes. Different countries apply this principle differently. Some do not require people to intervene, but offer legal protection, as long as the help is given in good faith and without gross negligence. Other countries expect some forms of assistance when it is safe to do so, while providing even stronger protection once a person steps in to help. Despite this difference, the direction is the same: to make it clear that stopping to help should not become a legal risk. Because in real emergency, the first life-saving actions almost never comes from professionals. It comes from someone who simply happened to be there. Leaving Route 1 near Almog, we park the car and get a taxi. Just ahead, there's a large red warning sign by the roadside. The sign marks the entrance to Area 1. It states clearly that this area is under Palestinian Authority control, and that Israeli citizens are legally prohibited from entering. This sign is not a travel advisory. It represents a legal and administrative boundary. Beyond this point, Israeli police, emergency service, and legal jurisdiction no longer apply. For foreign visitors, Entering Area A is not illegal. What matters instead is the system you are using to move through it. Most Israeli rental cars are not insured to enter Area A, even if you can physically drive in. An accident, theft, or breakdown may leave you without coverage or assistance. That is why the cars stay outside. To convey into Jericho, we changed to a Palestinian taxi with a green license plate. The license plate indicates that the vehicle is registered under the Palestinian Authority. It can legally enter Area A, and its insurance, policing, and accident handling all belongs to the same system. This change is not about convenience. It is about moving from one legal and administrative framework into another. As you enter Jericho, you may notice a large hotel-like building near the city entrance that feels very different from the rest of the city. This structure comes from the 1990s, after the Oslo peace process, when Jericho became one of the first cities under full Palestinian Authority control. At the time, tourism and leisure were seen as fast way to build an economy. Large hotels and even a casino were developed here, mainly for Israelis and international visitors, not for local residents. Between 1997 and 1999, these projects were operating. In 2000, the Second Intifada began. Movement was restricted, tourism collapsed, and the casino closed the same year. The building remains, but the purpose did not. That is why today they feel disconnected from the city around them. What you are seeing is not the Jericho present, but the future imaginations in the 1990s that never fully arrived. From the city of Jericho, the quickest way up to the Mount of Temptation is not on foot, but by cable car. This cable car is a modern addition, built to connect the city below with the monastery on the cliff above. In just a few minutes, the ground drops away beneath you. The reason it exists is simple. Without it, the mountain would only be accessible to those with time and physical strength. The cable car opened the sight to far more people. In Jericho, this does not feel out of place. The mountain west of Jericho is commonly known today as the Mount of Temptation. It lies at the eastern edge of the Judean desert and overlooks the Jordan Valley. The terrain is dry, steep, and largely without natural shelter. According to the New Testament Gospel, after his baptism, Jesus entered the wilderness and fasted for 40 days. During this period, the text describes 3 temptations. The Gospel accounts mention he was urged to turn stone into bread, to demonstrate divine protection by leaping from the heights, and to accept authority in exchange for allegiance. These events are described as taking place in the wilderness. The biblical text himself do not identify a specific mountain as the exact location of these events. The association of this site with the temptation narrative developed later with Christian traditions. From the 14th century onward, after Christianity became legal with the Roman Empire, ascetics and monks began settling in the Jordan's desert. These early monks sought remote area away from urban center. The regions around the Mount of Temptation, due to its isolation and proximity to Jericho, become one of the locations associated with early monastic life. Early dwelling in this area consists mainly of cave or simple structure carved into the rock. These were used by individuals living in isolation or small groups. During Byzantine period, scattered ascetic communities gradually developed into a more permanent religious institution. The monastery visible today is generally known as the Monastery of Temptation and belongs to the Greek Orthodox tradition. The monastery is built directly into the cliff face. Over the centuries, it has been damaged by earthquake and conflict, and subsequently rebuilt multiple times. The present structure largely reflects modern restorations. In the late 20th century, a cable car system was constructed to provide access from the city of Jericho to the monastery area. Today, most visitors reach this site by these routes. From the wilderness described in the New Testament to early Christian Mosaic settlement and to the present-day monastery, the Mount of Temptations reflects several layers of religious traditions and history. North of the modern city of Jericho lies the Jericho Oasis Archaeological Park. At its center is a mound known to archaeologists as Tales as Sultan. This mound is made of successive layers of human settlement, built one on top of another over thousands of years. Archaeological evidence indicates that occupation here began in the Neolithic period, making this site one of the earliest known places of permanent human settlement. The key reason people were able to live here continuously was the presence of a reliable water source. Nearby is a spring commonly known today as Sultan, which supplied water for agriculture and sustained the surrounding population. Over different periods, the settlement includes defensive wall, towers, residential area, and shared space. As time passed, the city was destroyed, rebuilt, and reoccupied multiple times, which each leaves living tracks to the soil. In the early 20th century, systematic archaeological excavations began at the site. By studying the layer of the mound, researcher was able to reconstruct how Jericho developed across different areas. What is presented in the archaeological park today is not a single moment in history, but an accumulated record of human presence at the oasis over millennia. Near the archaeological remains of ancient Jericho is a natural spring known today as Elisha Spring. This spring has provided a continuous source of fresh water for thousands of years, and is the main reason permanent settlement was possible in this area. In the Hebrew Bible, the spring is associated with the prophet Elisha. According to the text, Elisha is said to have restored the water so that it could sustain the lands and its people. From a historical perspective, the spring is one of the most reliable water sources in the lower Jordan Valley. A steady flow supports agriculture, population growth, and repeated rebuilding of the city across different periods. Today, Elisha Spring continues to mark the connection between water, settlement, and the long human history of Jericho. Just opposite to the Elisha Spring is a souvenir shop that I brought my souvenir here. Walking along the streets of Jericho today, it's easy to forget that this is a city with more than 10,000 years of human presence. Jericho appears repeatedly in religious texts, including the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament. These writings record events and peoples from different periods, and reflect the city's roles in ancient Near East. Across history, Jericho came under the influence of successful powers, including Egyptians, Assyrian, Babylonian, Persian, Greek, and Roman rules. With age change, the size and location of the city shift over time. During the Roman period, Jericho functioned as an important agricultural and trading center. The region was known for date palms, balsam, and other valuable crops, supported by the local climate and irrigations. In the medieval period, the city fortunes rose and fell alongside change in regional politics and trade routes. Settlement patterns and urban centers move accordingly. Modern Jericho is a living city built along layers of earlier habitations. Everyday life now takes place alongside archaeology remains and long-standing religious traditions. Walking here today, you're not moving through a museum, but through a place that has been continuously used, rebuilt, and inhabited across many years. Walking through the street of Jericho, I'm about to do something very ordinary. Buy a meal of fried chicken. In a previous episode, when I was in Bethlehem eating KFC, I mentioned that besides being cheaper, there's another important reason why I ate fried chicken in Palestinian Area A. In many Israeli cities, it's actually difficult to find international fried chicken chains. The reason has less to do with taste or price, and more to do with food regulations that are very real in this region. In most Israeli cities, many restaurants are expected to comply with Jewish dietary law, commonly known as Kosher. Kosher is a set of dietary rules derived from the Hebrew Bible and later rabbinic tradition. It regulates not only what may be eaten, but also how food is processed, how animals are slaughtered, and whether an entire kitchen follows a specific system. With regard to meats, only certain animals are permitted. Poultry, including chickens, is allowed, but only if they has been slaughtered according to kosher requirements. Kosher law also strictly separates meat and dairy. They may not be consumed in the same meal, prepared in the same kitchen, or handled with the same utensils. This is why most international fried chicken chains struggle to meet kosher standards in Israeli city. The difficulties lies in the source of the chicken, the method of the slaughter, and whether the entire kitchen operation follow a certified kosher system. If any part of that system does not comply, the restaurant cannot be considered kosher. By comparison, Halal referred to Islamic dietary law. Halal also regulated permitted animals and slaughter method, but it does not prohibit meat and dairy from being consumed together. As a result, in Palestinian city, as long as the chicken meets Halal requirements, fried chicken itself is generally acceptable. Under kosher rules, there are also many foods that are common in everyday diets, but do not meet the kosher standards. These include cheeseburger, meat cooked with butter or cream, most seafood, and food made with gelatin. So what I'm buying now is not just a cheaper price of fried chicken, but something that exists because different dairy systems operate side by side in this region. This honey scone from Popeyes strangely reminds me of KFC in Hong Kong. It's pure nostalgia. The last day's schedule ran late, so the baptism site of Jesus had to wait until the second day. What is commonly called the baptism site of Jesus refers to the stretch of the Jordan River. According to the New Testament Gospel, Jesus was baptized in this region by John the Baptist, an event that marks the beginning of his public ministry. The biblical texts themselves, however, do not provide precise geographical coordinates. The association between the baptism narrative and specific locations along the river developed gradually through religious tradition, historical memory, and later geographical study. Today, the sites most commonly identified the Baptist location are found along the lower Jordan River near Jericho and very close to modern political borders. On the eastern bank of the river, the site is generally known as Al-Maqdis. It is recognized by the Jordanian authorities and by multiple Christian denominations as a primary baptism site, and it has been designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. On the western bank, near Jericho, another long-used pilgrimage site is found, commonly referred to as Qasr al-Yozhad. In physical terms, the two sites are separated by little more than narrow river, yet the same river also functions as an international boundary. Along this section of Jordan River, three modern political entities intersect. To the east is Jordan, to the west is the Palestinian West Bank, and Israel maintains significant military and administrative control over the surrounding area. As a result, which Baptist site a visit can reach today often depends on practical factors, travel routes, personal documentations, and the security situation on that particular day. From a geographical perspective, this area lies within one of the lowest river valleys on Earth. The land here sets below sea level, and the climate is hot and dry, and the river itself is narrow, but its course is clearly defined. It is this river that connects Galilee, Jerusalem, the wilderness, and Jericho, forming a recurrent backdrop from ancient movements, religious activities, and historical narrative. Within Christian traditions, baptism represents more than a ritual act. It marks the beginning for the Christians. This place signifies the start of a public mission. At the same time, this river is not associated with only one religious tradition. The Jordan River holds a central place in the Hebrew Bible as well, with its own distinct meaning in Jewish history and religious memory. For this reason, along the river bank, people of different denominations, language, and nationalities often gather in close proximity, each observing their own practice. Some enter the water for baptism, some stand along the shore in prayer, and some simply come to see the river that appears repeatedly in religious texts. Today, the baptism site of Jesus functions simultaneously as a religious space, an archaeological and historical landscape, a destination for visitors, and a border zone shaped by modern political realities. Standing here, it's possible to see all of these layers at once. The setting described in ancient texts, the presence of contemporary borders, and religious practice that are still taking place. Behind the river, there's also a souvenir shop. One last funny thing happened on the way out. As I was driving away, I got misled by the white gravel on the road and almost drove straight towards the Orthodox church in front of the parking lot. It took me a second to realize something was off. Then a police car behind me started honking repeatedly. That was when I was understood I was heading into a wrong direction. Thankfully, the warning came in time. Otherwise, this trip might have ended a little bit different. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please leave your questions in the comment section below. If you don't like it, share it to your friends. In case if you want to support me, you can buy me a coffee by scanning the QR code in the left lower corner. You can also find the bank details in the info box. Once again, thanks for watching. See you next time.